Greetings, Star Warriors, and welcome to the Outer Rim. Today we're going to be talking about characterization. What makes them good, what makes them bad, what makes them ugly. And specifically, we're going to be talking about Rian Johnson's characters. And in order to make certain points, I'm going to be comparing and contrasting Rian Johnson's characters with more successful characters. And these characters that I'm going to be comparing his to are not necessarily Star Wars characters, although there will be a little bit of that, I guess. So, just to jump right into this, what makes a good character? Well, there's appearance. What a character looks like is often very important, although it is not the most important thing, I would say, about most characters. A character's appearance can tell you very superficial things about that character, which are important, but judging a book by its cover often leads to misconceptions about the book, or the character in this instance. So, to make a character truly interesting, you have to know something about that character beyond the appearance. How does that character behave? What would a character do in a certain situation? How did that character come to be the way that character is? So, first I'm going to take Snoke on one hand, and I'm going to describe him just from a cursory glance. He's a bald old man in a robe with some scars on his face. He's the supreme leader of the First Order, whatever that means, and he is Kylo Ren's Dark Master. And that, folks, is the extent of my knowledge on Snoke. All we know about him really is that he has a superior relationship with one of the main characters from this new sequel Star Wars trilogy. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look at a completely unrelated character who I believe is comparable to Snoke in many ways, but this character has also been successfully executed in a way that Snoke has failed to be presented to the audience. And this character is Sir Gregor Clegane from the Game of Thrones series, or if you read the books, A Song of Ice and Fire. Gregor Clegane is roughly 8 feet tall. He's a knight. He's said to suffer almost constant migraine headaches, and he is a monster. He also has a brother, Sandor Clegane. And the compelling story between these two brothers is that when they were growing up together, Gregor was the older and Sandor was the younger, and they both received toys from some relative or some family friend or something like that when they were young. And Sandor, the younger brother, wanted Gregor's toy, which was a toy knight. So he was playing with Gregor's toy one day. Gregor caught him playing with the toy, grabbed him, shoved his face into a fire, and scarred his younger brother forever. Okay. Ever since then, the two brothers have hated each other. Eventually, Gregor becomes a knight, and Sandor does not. Now, I could go on and on and on telling you about how Gregor was 6'2" by the time he was 12 years old, and he kept growing and growing after that until he was nearly 8 feet tall. But really, what I've already told you was related to the audience in A Game of Thrones in a roughly 30 seconds to a minute's worth of time. In the books, it didn't take any more than a page. So, knowing these things about Gregor and Sandor, or maybe even Snoke if we ever learn anything about him, we'll never be surprised when we see them do things. Well, maybe not never, but mostly we won't be surprised. These side characters will generally behave true to form, and will have a story because of them. It's like Boba Fett. Boba Fett was a bounty hunter, so we expect him to hunt bounties. And that's exactly what he does, and he furthers the story when he does what he's supposed to do. Imagine George Lucas or Irvin Kershner trying to make The Empire Strikes Back without ever telling the audience that Boba Fett is a bounty hunter. It would be impossible to progress that story, at least in the way we know it's supposed to progress. So, what does all this have to do with Rian Johnson, Snoke, and all that, you might be asking right about now? Well, Rian Johnson is stepping into a very well-established franchise with very well-established rules, and he is creating characters within this franchise. So, when it comes to a character like Snoke, we know that there are established rules that he is bound by. And if in any way he breaks those rules, there has to be a good explanation. Now, as far as we know, the way that the Return of the Jedi left the Star Wars universe, people like Snoke were not supposed to exist. As far as we know. Now, I'm not saying Snoke is a Sith Lord, but for all I know, he could be. I have no idea what he is. No narrative in the story has established him as a Sith Lord or not a Sith Lord. And until it does, I'm not going to take Rian Johnson's word for it. I'm not going to take J.J. Abrams' word for it, because I realize they're writing the story as they go, and things are liable to change on a moment's notice. So, Luke brought balance to the Force, Anakin brought balance to the Force. As far as I'm aware, that means that the people who are wielders of the dark side are no more. So where does Snoke come from? Why does he have this knowledge of Darth Vader or anything else? How did he get his powers? How did he become Supreme Leader of the First Order? What does it mean to be Supreme Leader of the First Order? Does it mean that if you have dark side power that you just come in and you are automatically the leader? How are you able to turn a member of the Skywalker family to the dark side? It seemed like a very in-depth and carefully implemented plan that took 10 years for Palpatine to accomplish. Or more than that, actually, to turn Anakin to the dark side. So, what's with the Snoke character? Unfortunately, no one seems to have the answers. We don't know why he did what he did. We don't know how he was able to do what he did. And we don't know exactly what he did. Literally, this is a character who has no future and no past. He's a character that you could take out of The Force Awakens, you could take him out of The Last Jedi, and it would make little difference at all. So, here's where I'm going to contrast, or compare and contrast, Snoke with Gregor Clegane again. The Mountain, Gregor Clegane, the big giant, 8 feet tall. Would Game of Thrones be the same story without Gregor Clegane? He's a side character. He doesn't make very many appearances at all. So what is it about him that makes him integral to the story? It's very simple. When Queen Cersei was at her lowest, Gregor Clegane was there to lift her up to her highest point. It is because this character has a past that he also has a future within the narrative in a story that he does not appear in very often. He has an integral role to a story that has hundreds of characters and spans several years. And Queen Cersei is not the only one who is affected by what this character does. As I mentioned earlier, Gregor Clegane has a brother, Sandor Clegane. They both have grown into manhood at this point in the story. And they hate each other. All these years later. So, many fans are expecting the two will face off before the end, and one will come out alive and the other will come out dead. The fandom has taken to calling this Clegane Bowl. Now, while I'm not certain as if Clegane Bowl will happen in the books, I am very certain it will happen in the show. But the point is that several characters are affected and revolve around what Gregor Clegane does, even though he's a cursory side character. If you look at Snoke and Kylo Ren, once Snoke is dead, Kylo Ren stays the course. He does exactly what Snoke would do in his place. He tries to destroy the Resistance. He tries to destroy Luke Skywalker. He even goes on to try and destroy Rey and Leia and everyone who he had tried to gain to his side or had hesitated to kill earlier on. For all intents and purposes, in the latter part of The Last Jedi, Kylo Ren is Snoke. There's literally little difference between the two. There's only one Gregor Clegane. There's only one Sandor Clegane. No one else can stand in for their role. This is what makes a good character. This is what makes a compelling character. This is what makes us want to watch and see what they will do, so that we can tell where the story's going to go, before it gets there generally. It's the reason why after watching The Last Jedi, none of us care about what's going to happen next. We don't know these characters, and the storytellers weren't interested in telling us who the characters are. So in essence, when we were in the theater watching The Last Jedi, we were effectively watching an action-packed lecture where we were given a bunch of facts. The First Order rules the galaxy. They're chasing the Resistance across space. The old hermit won't teach the young girl. And what does it matter anyway? Just burn down the past. Blah, blah, blah. Just nothing but facts. There is no rhyme or reason to any of it. I hope you guys have been enjoying the videos so far. It's been quite an experience for me making them. I know that much. With Disney trying to tear down the past and all that goes along with that, there are going to be very few places online that preserve the original trilogy and the prequels and ignore the sequel travesty that we're all having to deal with at the moment. So I would like to build a website, and I know some people who know how to do that because I am completely inept at coding and everything. But I also have other plans. I've been inspired for quite a while now, actually, by animators across the web, one especially named Paul Johnson and another named Darren Tribbles. Both have been able to capture a certain part of the essence of the original trilogy, mostly. Darren Tribbles has actually done a lot of art and animation inspired by the Ralph McQuarrie that is responsible for the look and feel of so much of the original trilogy. Paul Johnson, on the other hand, many of you will be familiar with his work. It's amazing, and it is something that is, of course, has inspired me as well. I've already taken a crack at animation. Many of you have seen some of my work already, and while I am proud of it, I realize that my equipment is below my standards, and if I'm going to take the next step, I'm going to need to buy more expensive equipment. I do have a day job, and from time to time I do some freelance work in order to make sure I have enough emergency money at the end of every month, but that still leaves me with far less time than I would like to begin honing my animation skills. So, in order to get the ball rolling on all of these plans, I have joined Patreon recently, which is a platform where anyone who enjoys my content can contribute as little as $1 a month to help support the channel and help support plans for the future for the preservation of the real Star Wars in these dark times. But whether or not you donate on Patreon, I will continue to upload 4 to 5 videos a week, and hopefully I can entertain you guys some more. Like, subscribe, comment down below, hit the notification bell, and as always, if you're listening, you are the new rebellion. You are the new rebellion. You are the new rebellion. You are the new